The information and opinions presented in this podcast are based on research done at a particular point in time. The fields of medicine, surgery, psychology, etc. are constantly evolving as new studies and movements happen. Please take into account the year of any particular episode's publication, and as new information presents itself, we will do our best to release updated episodes on the topics. Listener discretion is advised for references to medical terminology of body parts. Unless otherwise stated, no one speaking on this podcast is a medical or legal professional and cannot provide medical or legal advice. Welcome to the Trans Field Guide. Please join me in welcoming onto the show Kristen Ruby-Carlini. So the main topics that we're going to be talking about is going to be hairstyles and fashion, to utilize them to be able to present as more masculine or feminine. So let's start with what makes for a masculinizing haircut.
To be honest, I truly feel that your haircut is ultimately up to you and your personality. So whether or not you feel it makes you feel masculine is what is the most important. So a guy could come in and have more of a shaggy cut where it's, maybe around the ear length, eyebrow, and around, and they still feel masculine with it. If you want to get super stereotypical about it, then, short on the sides, a little longer on top, or maybe even a lot longer on top, where like the whole pompadour look is kind of in, where you get those classic looks with the defined part. Almost sometimes these days they're actually buzzing in those parts where they actually make them a little bit more defined with trimmers. So I guess if you had a guy come in who had never had like a male haircut before and they're like, I don't know what I want, what type of advice would you give to them? My first questions I would ask them are, we need to figure out what their boundaries are. What's too long, what's too short. I'd start asking them, okay, if we cut it around this length, how does that make you feel when you look in the mirror? Because that's what's important. I can look at a haircut and be like, I think you look super masculine with this haircut. But when they look in the mirror, if they don't feel that way, then that's the ultimate decision making. Yeah, so that's what I would ask first, and then we would just kind of slowly start working our way. I would ask them, what are things you don't like? People come into the salon all the time and they sit down and you say, what would you like? And they say, I don't know. That's just, they kind of panic, blank out. And so it's my job to kind of dig within them, almost like a therapist would when you sit down with a therapist, and you have the answers to your own problems within you, and it's the therapist's job to help you bring them out. It's the same way in hair. I have to sit there and I ask specific questions to figure out what it is that would be the perfect hairstyle for them, whether it's for a more masculine look or a more feminine look. But the number one thing that people always know, they might not always know what they like, but they always know what they don't like. So that's always the first questions probably I would ask.
And I'd imagine it'd be pretty much the exact same thing with feminine people who come in as well.
Exactly. And I mean, for a more feminine look, I feel like you have so many more options, which is disappointing, sometimes, because when guys come in and they want something different, I'm like, well, our options are kind of limited, I mean, we can go shorter because that's pretty much the extent of it. I mean, these days, though, it's really popular to have a man bun. But when it comes to wanting to feel masculine, I could see how maybe a man bun wouldn't make you feel that way. But like I said before, ultimately it's what you're dealing with within.
I know that there are particular cuts and styles where they make the face look more round or look more square. Do you generally tend to suggest styles that do one or the other depending on what look the person's going for?
So this is a very popular question. The ideal face shape, according to your beauty society, magazines and whatnot, is oval. In my mind, as a hairstylist for 14 years, I think to myself, well, who said that oval is the ideal face shape? If you're going off of that, then yes, what hairstylists will usually do is they'll pick a style for that person to create the oval face shape. So if you have a more square face, then they're going to do something to kind of cut the corners to round them out, so that way you appear to have a more oval face shape. If you have a heart-shaped face, obviously the forehead's probably bigger than the chin area and jaw area. So they would create a cut that cuts off the forehead a little bit, maybe creating maybe some bangs or something along those lines for females, or I guess even for guys too, like doing something that's more down versus up. But in my mind, I don't know why the oval face shape has to be the ideal face shape. I mean, why are we subjecting ourselves to such small boxes? You know, like, why can't we embrace the face shapes that we have? Now, I say that, but there are some hairstyles that you can do that will kind of hurt a little bit. So like if you have an oblong face would be more of like a oval face shape but stretched almost, if you want to think of it that way. You don't want to probably do something super short and spiky. It's just going to make your face look even longer. I mean, an oblong face is not a bad face shape to have, but to enhance the longness of it, maybe not so much. Same thing for super round faces. Doing bangs would create more roundness to it, but some people actually like that look, so why not? Also with oblong faces, you don't want to do something super long and straight, because that's just going to pull it down.
Any advice and stuff for clothing and fashion to create more masculine appearance versus more feminine appearance?
I kind of feel a lot in the same way with the hair that I do in fashion. It kind of sounds like it's like a cop-out, but in a way, you are what makes the fashion. I met this girl past couple of weeks, and she was talking about a certain body shape she wanted to look and be, but her given body shape was not. You know, she wanted, I think it was a hourglass figure she wanted, and so there are ways to create a body shape that you want a little bit more than others. So, you know, like using cinched waistlines and stuff like that when it comes to feminine looks. When it comes to more masculine looks, I think ultimately it is really what makes you feel masculine, and not going off of what society tells us it is, because society can tell us, oh, you need to be wearing a button-up shirt with a pocket and slacks, or you need to be wearing cut-off sleeves, or you know what I mean, or flannel. You know, like these are all such society driven ideals of what our looks should be, masculine or feminine. And so it is what makes you truly feel comfortable, and then whatever that is, owning it. And it is easier said than done in a lot of ways, but eventually it will come to that point where you realize what your style is. And I mean, even me, I went 19, 20 years till I actually knew what my style was. I remember dating somebody for 5 years, and then when we broke up, I was like, I don't know what I like. I don't know. And so that was a whole completely different situation, but it even took me to like go and adventure out into the stores and figure out what actually I felt comfortable with.
I mean, it is also very common with trans people as well, because it's that whole, you've been wearing one set type of thing your entire life up until X point, and then it's like, now I can start dressing like how I want to dress. How is that?
What is that? Yeah. I remember actually buying my husband's first quote-unquote male outfit, which, if you look back at old pictures, he wore so many male outfits, like just in life, and being comfortable in that type of clothing, whether it was like sweatpants and a t-shirt or whatever, but purposefully going and shopping in the men's section. That was what was the point. Like, oh yes, I get to shop in this section, but what do I like? With how the stores are, they're designated by gender for the most part. So yeah, that does help. If you want to feel like you have a more masculine look, then you go to the men's section. I really wouldn't try to box yourself into what society tells us has to be that gender.
I do agree with you that just figuring out what works best for you is kind of part of the whole journey.
If you think about it, especially with transitioning, and this is just coming from an outsider, watching the process happening and being involved, but from that other perspective, you can put it into puberty in a way, like into that age bracket of when we go through puberty, where we're figuring out who we are, what our personalities are, what we like, what we don't like in clothing and hair and our personalities and what we do for our hobbies and whatnot. So it is kind of like that. I mean, and you might think and feel great, and then a couple of years later you look back at those pictures and you're like, what the hell was I doing? Why did I wear that? You think I look so awkward. Well, yeah, during puberty we looked so awkward, but that's what matters, is what's happening at the moment, and not holding back because you feel like it's not the right thing, quote unquote.
Any other advice that you want to impart on the listeners?
When it comes to hair, it's a very sensitive thing for people finding a good hairstylist, I feel like, because a lot of times we don't realize how much, and this isn't for everybody, but I think maybe probably for the majority of people, we don't realize how much hair makes or breaks our day, because it's such a huge part of our look. So if we start the day off and we have a bad hair day, our day just starts out pretty crappy. And it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to always have great hair days, but having a good style for you as a person is extremely important because of that. And you need to find a stylist that is willing to listen. That's extremely important. And unfortunately, there are a lot of hairstylists out there that don't. They just want to give you what they think you should have. And that's not it. You need to be able to say, this is what I do for a living. These are the things I like to do when I'm not working. Get to know their personality, because that's what really helps make the style for them and will help them guide through the transitioning of hairstyles, whether that is because you're transgender or that's just because you're becoming different in your style or coming out of your cocoon, or you're just, you're branching out. So it's really important to do your research on your stylist and make sure that they're willing to talk with you about it. And it doesn't matter how long. I mean, some of my clients probably think I ask too many questions and I explain too many things to them, because I'm like, okay, now I'm going to part right here and I'm going to cut. And they're probably like, I don't care, just do your job. But at the same time, there are some that actually really appreciate that I do that. But if you're in the DFW area, I am in North Richland Hills, and I'm very open to all walks of life, and I will definitely talk to you and figure out what it is that you would truly like to make your style. I'm going to offer half off of my price for the whole transgender community. I just know that there's so many expenses that go into what's happening, whether you're having surgery or not having surgery. Surgery is not the only thing. I mean, you've got your hormone therapy, then you've got your clothes, there's binders, there's just so many different aspects that you have to throw money into. I've been through that with my husband, so I get it. And if there's anything I can do to help, and being someone who has gone through the process with somebody, I feel like I can be a little bit more sensitive to the subject as well. So I will offer half off. My women's haircuts are $60, that'll be $30, and my men's prices are normally $50, so it'll be half off, and so it's $25 for them. I find a lot of people think I'm a little bit on the pricier side in comparison to probably the average cost of haircuts when it comes to my normal prices. I mean, there are definitely more people that are more expensive than I, but I think even in my salon, there are people that think probably the average cost is around $30 to $40 a haircut. With my experience and my training, I trained with Tony and Guy for 7 years before I went off on my own, and then now I've been on my own for 7 years. My services include shampoo, cut, and style. There's no a la carte. I am on Facebook, Kristen Carlini, KRISTENCARLINI. I am also on Instagram, Hair by Kristen Carlini. I do have a site for my booking, so it's called Vagaro, so it's VAGARO.com, and then you would put in my first and last name.
Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Like this episode? Tell someone about it. Resources referenced in this episode can be found in the show notes at transfieldguide.com. Stay safe, and remember that I'm proud of you.